bring in South Carolina Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace, a member of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee and the Armed Services Committee. Congresswoman, welcome.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike.
So 2 train derailments, same company, same state, about a month apart. What are your concerns?
Well, number one, thank God nobody was hurt. And number two, thank goodness there were no hazardous chemicals on these 28 boxcars that were derailed. But I'm looking around the room and looking around the country and wondering what the heck is going on with our railroads right now, and how quickly can we get the CEO of Norfolk Southern, can we get the governor of Ohio, Pete Buttigieg, and anybody else involved in these disasters and get some accountability here. We've got $66 billion reasons why to ask. That was about the amount in the last infrastructure bill that our rail got. Where's the money going? How is it being invested? And how are we going to keep people safe? This is embarrassing to see this many derailments in such a short period of time.
In your view, how have President Biden and his team, like Secretary Buttigieg, responded to the East Palestine derailment?
Like aid to Ukraine, they've slow-rolled in their reaction in Ohio. It took 10 days for the Secretary of Transportation, or Mayor Pete, to actually say anything about East Palestine. And this is one of the greatest environmental disasters of the last 40 or 50 years at least, and stayed silent for the first 10 days and didn't go out to Ohio until after the former president made a visit with pallets of water. It says a lot about the leadership in the administration right now.
Do these derailments potentially suggest our infrastructure is in worse shape than we thought?
Well, clearly our infrastructure is crumbling, and we spent and invested $1.9 trillion into our infrastructure. I don't think the American people want to see more EV charging stations for cars that are already being done in the private sector. They don't want to see the government do that. I think they'd rather see those dollars invested in traditional infrastructure, rail, roads, and bridges. I got 2 bridges behind me worth about $1 billion each in the state of South Carolina, and I'm only one congressional district, but we only got $1 billion extra for our infrastructure needs above our baseline with regards to that $2 trillion bill. We need to invest smartly in all of our critical infrastructure, particularly when it affects our supply chain, like it's going to with all these derailments that are happening around the country right now.
I spoke to a prominent Democratic senator at an event last night and talked to him about infrastructure. He said, well, give it time for the money to get where it needs to go. It still takes time. Will voters reward President Biden for ribbon cuttings and for passing this, even if they haven't seen the full effects of new infrastructure?
2 years is a long time. We'll know then.
Fair enough. Okay. And do you buy the argument that it's going to take time for the money to get there, or do you think we should be seeing some benefits sooner?
Well, we need to see an investigation before the public in a bicameral way in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House. We need to bring leaders, particularly the CEO of Norfolk Southern, the governor of Ohio, who has some responsibility here, and Mayor Pete, to tell us what's going on, how they're going to fix it, and perhaps folks that can tell us where the $66 billion is going to go to keep our rail infrastructure online, to keep our supply chains moving, and not have these horrific derailments. 28 cars. We're lucky nobody died and that there are no hazardous materials on board this time.
So you're now in the majority in the House. I mentioned you serve on the oversight panel. What kind of hearings do you expect related to this, and how soon?
Well, there's so much to investigate. It's where do you start? I actually read a whistleblower report the other day. I'm going to start an investigation on where a person at the Pentagon was basically bribed $1 million to get a $10 billion contract for their favorite software company. There's so much going on that we're seeing at the federal level with different federal agencies. This isn't the only disaster or the only derailment that needs to be investigated. It's sort of like, where do you start? But my biggest, and I'm jaded 2 years in already, but we have these hearings, but who's going to be referred to the DOJ? Who's going to lose their job for not doing their job? We've got to have accountability in this administration, full stop. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, that's got to happen.